My name is Myra Summers. I was 41 years old when my sister tried to reclaim the son she handed me 19 years earlier. She was 16 when she got pregnant. My parents didn't know what to do. They panicked about their reputation, about Vanessa's future, about everything except the child who was actually coming. So they looked at me. I was 22, single, had never held a newborn in my entire life. I said yes anyway. I raised him alone, worked 2 jobs through his first 3 years, wrapped his Christmas gifts in newspaper because wrapping paper wasn't in the budget, and sat through every single parent-teacher conference without another adult beside me. My sister moved to Boston, finished her degree, earned her MBA, married twice, and never once picked up the phone to ask how her son was doing. Then he walked across a graduation stage, and she walked into that gymnasium carrying a grocery store cake with pink frosting that read, "Congratulations, from your real mom." What happened next made my mother cry, made my sister's boyfriend walk out, and made 200 strangers rise to their feet for a woman they had never met before in their lives. If you are someone who believes that family is built by showing up, and not by biology alone, stay with me, drop a comment, and tell me where you are watching from, and what time it is there. I read every single one. Let me take you all the way back to the night my mother called at 2 in the morning. I grew up in Willow Creek, Ohio. 11,000 people. The kind of town where your neighbor knows your grades before you do, and the woman at the pharmacy asks about your aunt's knee replacement. My sister Vanessa is 6 years younger than me. She was the baby of the family, the one who lit up a room without trying, the one my mother described as fragile and in need of protection. I was the other one, the one who set the table, the one who washed the dishes, the one who drove Vanessa to dance class every Tuesday and Thursday, because my mother said it was good practice for when I had children of my own someday. I loved my sister. I want to be honest about that. I loved her the way you love someone who has been in your life so long that irritation and tenderness have fused into something impossible to separate. Our mother Rita had a simple system. Vanessa needed to be handled carefully. I was the one who could handle anything. Our father Gerald agreed with whatever Rita said. He was not a mean man. He was simply absent from every conversation that required him to be present. I was 22 when everything changed. I had just graduated from Ohio State with a degree in education. I had been accepted into a master's program with a full scholarship. I had a studio apartment with a window that faced a parking lot, which I thought was the most beautiful view I had ever owned. Vanessa was 16, a sophomore. She had a boyfriend named Tyler who drove a Mustang and worked at the movie theater. Then one night in March, my home phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was my mother. I drove 40 minutes through the dark without knowing what I was driving toward. Rita was at the kitchen table with a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. Gerald stood by the refrigerator staring at a spot on the floor. Vanessa was upstairs. I could hear her crying through the ceiling. Rita slid something across the table without looking up. An ultrasound printout. 4 months along. Vanessa had known for 4 months and told no one. Rita's first words were not about Vanessa. They were not about the baby or about Tyler, who had already gone silent. Her first words were, "The neighbors cannot know." I remember the clock reading 11 past 2. The tea cooling, Gerald clearing his throat and contributing nothing. Rita laid out the options the way a general describes a battlefield: adoption. But that meant paperwork, and paperwork meant people finding out, keeping it. But Vanessa was 16, and Rita would not have a teenage mother under her roof. She said it would ruin everything we have built, as though she had constructed something more significant than a front lawn and a neighborhood reputation. Then she walked to the hallway closet, returned with a small yellow blanket folded into a neat square. Cotton, faded at the edges. "This was yours," she said, handing it to me, "when you were born." I held it, soft and thin from 22 years in storage. It smelled like cedar and thyme. Rita sat back down, finally looked at me. "You have to help. You are her sister." The next morning, Rita made the terms clear. If I didn't take the baby, an adoption agency would be called by Friday. The child would go to strangers. Vanessa would return to school, and none of this would ever be spoken of again. I asked the only question that seemed to matter. "Does Vanessa want to keep him?" Rita waved her hand like I had asked about the weather. "Vanessa is a child. She doesn't know what she wants." Gerald nodded. He always nodded. I looked at Vanessa, who had come downstairs and was sitting on the couch with her knees drawn to her chest, wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too large, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. She looked exactly like what she was, a scared 16-year-old who had no idea what was happening to her body or her future. "Vanessa," I said, "what do you want?" She looked at Rita, then at me, then at the floor. "I just want it to go away," she whispered. Rita pointed at me. "There. She has school. She has her whole life ahead of her. She has school. I need you to hold on to that line, because 19 years later, in a gymnasium full of 200 people, those 4 words would come back and mean something entirely different." I drove home that night with the yellow blanket on my passenger seat. I hadn't said yes, but in my family, silence was always taken as agreement. 2 weeks later, I called my mother and told her I would do it. I withdrew from the master's program the following morning. Dylan was born on July 14th at 3:17 in the afternoon. 6 pounds, 9 ounces, a full head of dark hair, and a cry that could strip paint from walls. I was in the delivery room. Vanessa was there because she was the one in labor. Rita stood near the door with her arms folded, watching the clock. Gerald waited in the hallway, probably staring at the floor. The delivery took 11 hours. Vanessa was braver than I expected. She didn't complain. She breathed the way the nurse instructed and pushed when they said push. She was 16 years old, and her body was doing something extraordinary. And I watched her face through every contraction and thought, she is so young. When Dylan arrived, the nurse wrapped him and held him out. Who wants to hold him first? 3 people in that room. Vanessa turned her face toward the wall. Rita didn't move. The nurse looked at me. I took him. His eyes were closed. His fist curled around my index finger, and he stopped crying just like that, as though he had simply been waiting for the right person to hold him. The nurse asked who was taking him home. Silence. The longest silence of my life. I am, I said. 3 days later, I carried Dylan into my 1-bedroom apartment on East Willow Street. A borrowed crib, a box of diapers from the dollar store, and the yellow blanket from my mother's closet. I wrapped him in it that first night. The same blanket that had once wrapped me. It barely covered him, but it was soft and warm, and it was ours. The first year nearly broke me. Dylan had colic. He cried for 4 hours every night between 8 and midnight. I walked circles around that apartment, with him pressed against my chest, humming half-remembered songs, watching the clock, bargaining with it. I was working as a teaching assistant from 7:45 to 3:30, then coming home to an infant who hadn't read the schedule. I learned to function on 4 hours of sleep. I learned to eat standing up. I learned to shower in under 3 minutes, because 3 minutes was exactly how long Dylan would tolerate the bouncy seat before deciding the world was ending. I called my mother once at 11 at night after Dylan had been screaming for 3 straight hours. I was in the kitchen in sweatpants and a formula-stained shirt, crying alongside him. Mom, I need help. Just one night. Rita's voice was even. You chose this, Myra. You are an adult. Figure it out. She hung up. Vanessa, meanwhile, left for college in Boston in August. Tuition covered by scholarships and our parents' savings. The same savings that apparently couldn't stretch to Dylan's pediatrician bills when I asked. In October, a family court granted me legal guardianship. Vanessa signed the relinquishment forms by fax from Boston during rush week. I filed the papers in a small, fireproof safe I kept under my bed, next to the yellow blanket, next to Dylan's hospital bracelet, next to a photograph of him sleeping on my chest at 4 days old. Mouth open, fist curled, finally at peace. Let me give you the next several years, in moments. Dylan at 1, taking his first steps from the coffee table to the couch. 3 feet of open air with his arms out and a grin like he had just conquered something enormous. I recorded it on a flip phone that held barely 30 seconds of video. I still have that clip. Dylan at 2. His first word was ma, short, efficient, as though he had already identified what mattered most and saw no reason to add extra syllables. Dylan at 3, me working part-time mornings, while a neighbor named Patty watched him for $40 a week. Patty had 6 grandchildren and the patience of bedrock. Dylan at 4, reading the cereal box at breakfast and asking me what riboflavin meant. I had to look it up. Dylan at 5, his first day of kindergarten. I stood outside the school gates for 15 minutes after he walked in, just in case. He didn't look back once. He marched through those doors with his Spider-Man backpack like he had somewhere important to be. I sat in my car and cried because I was so proud and so devastated at the same time and couldn't separate the two. No one from the Summers family visited during those years. Not once. No Christmas gifts. No birthday cards. Rita called occasionally to ask how I was managing, never to offer help. Gerald mailed a $50 check on Dylan's 3rd birthday, with no note attached. When Dylan was 6, Vanessa finally called. Tuesday evening, I was making spaghetti. Dylan was at the table drawing a dinosaur eating a spaceship. The caller ID showed a Boston number, and I almost let it go to voicemail. Myra, it's Vanessa. Her voice had changed, polished, more composed. She did not ask about Dylan, not how school was going, not what he liked to eat, not whether the colic had ever stopped. She asked about a car, a 2003 Toyota Camry she had left in our parents' garage 6 years ago. She needed to sell it for her apartment deposit. I'm graduating next spring, she said, and I need the money. I told her the car was probably still there. She said she would call Rita about it. Then she said thanks, bye, and was gone. 42 seconds. I timed it because I couldn't believe that was the entire conversation. That evening, Rita called to tell me Vanessa was graduating at the top of her class, and I shouldn't make things difficult for her. "I'm not making anything difficult," I said. "I'm making spaghetti." Vanessa graduated summa cum laude the following May. Rita and Gerald drove to Boston for the ceremony. They had the graduation photo professionally framed, 18 by 24, matted, hung in the living room. Dylan's first day of school photo was held to my refrigerator by a ladybug magnet. It was not in their house at all. When Dylan was 8, 2 things happened. The first was a job offer, a full-time special education aide position at Willow Creek High School, with a path to coordinator and a salary that felt like something I had only read about. The second was a question Dylan asked while I was at the kitchen sink. "Aunt Myra, how come I don't have a mom and dad like the other kids?" My hands went still. The water kept running. A plate clinked against the bottom of the sink. He was at the table behind me with homework spread out and a pencil in his hand. I turned off the water, dried my hands, sat across from him. "Dylan," I said, "I love you more than anything. Your birth mom loves you in her own way, but I am the one who is here, and I am the one who is always going to be here." He studied my face, the way he already had a habit of doing, reading people like they were text on a page. "I know," he said. "I just wanted to call you Mom instead of Aunt Myra. Is that okay?" I had not cried in years. Not when Rita refused to help. Not when Vanessa called about a car. Not when holidays came and went without a word from anyone. But when an 8-year-old boy asked for permission to call me Mom, something in me broke wide open. He got up from his chair, walked around the table, and wrapped his arms around me, small and tight. He smelled like pencil shavings and grape juice. "It's okay, Mom," he said. First time. That night after he went to bed, I opened the fireproof safe, took out the guardianship papers, and read every page by lamplight, my name on every line, his birth mother's signature on the relinquishment form, notarized, stamped, filed. I was still holding the papers when I heard a small knock on the door. Dylan stood there, in his dinosaur pajamas. "Mom, I can't sleep." "Me neither," I said. He climbed into my bed, spotted the yellow blanket in my hands, reached for it. "That's my baby blanket," he said. "It was mine first," I said, "before it was yours." He took it from me, examined the frayed edges carefully, then folded it with a precision unusual for an 8-year-old, and placed it back inside the safe. "We should keep it safe," he said. "It's important." He knew that more than he realized. I told Dylan the full truth when he was 13. We were on the porch on a Sunday afternoon. He had been asking questions for months. Not direct ones, but circling ones. Why did Grandma Rita always introduce him as Vanessa's son? Why were there no birth records in the family photo albums? Why had he never met Tyler? So I told him everything. The 2 a.m. phone call. Rita's ultimatum. The 40-minute drive home through the dark. Vanessa at 16, scared and not ready. The legal papers. The 19 years of silence. I told him the facts without editorializing. I didn't call Vanessa a bad person. I didn't say Rita was wrong. I just told him what happened in the order it happened. Dylan listened without interrupting. When I finished, he stood up, went inside, and closed his bedroom door. He didn't come out for 2 days. On the 3rd morning, he appeared at the kitchen table already dressed for school. I had made scrambled eggs. He sat down, picked up his fork, ate 3 bites. Then he said, "I'm not angry at her, at Vanessa, at any of them. I'm just sad for her. She missed everything." He went to school. I sat at that table for 20 more minutes holding a spatula, not breathing at a normal rate. Dylan didn't stop calling me Mom. He didn't ask to meet Vanessa. He didn't reach out to Rita or Gerald. He just continued being 13, awkward, brilliant, growing 3 inches that summer, and he continued being mine. While I was raising Dylan, Vanessa was accumulating credentials. An EMBA from Northwestern, marketing director at a boutique agency in Chicago by 28, corner office, company car, the kind of career that looks impressive on a professional profile. She also went through 2 marriages. The first lasted 2 years, the second 14 months. Each time Vanessa divorced, Rita called me, not to ask about Dylan, not to mention that her grandson had made the honor roll for the 4th consecutive time, but to tell me not to add to Vanessa's stress. "Your sister is going through a hard time," Rita said, after the second divorce. "She doesn't need anyone judging her." "I haven't spoken to Vanessa in 3 years," I said. "Good," Rita said. "Keep it that way. Let her heal." My sister married twice and divorced twice, and in all those years never once sent Dylan a birthday card. July 14th came and went every year, and the mailbox was always empty. Meanwhile, I finished my master's degree, 4 years of night classes while working full-time, and raising a child on my own. I graduated when Dylan was 8. No one from my family attended. My colleague and closest friend Claire sat in the third row, and cheered for 10. I became special education coordinator at Willow Creek High School the following year, and stopped waiting for congratulatory phone calls sometime around year 4. The Thanksgiving, when Dylan was 15, was the first time I brought him to my parents' house in years. I don't entirely know why I agreed. Maybe I wanted Dylan to experience a full holiday table at least once. Maybe I was tired of acting as though the Summers family didn't exist. We drove the 40 minutes. Dylan wore a button-down shirt he had chosen himself and kept adjusting his collar in the mirror. Rita met us at the door, gave Dylan a brief, performative hug, and walked him into the dining room to introduce him to a cousin he had never met. This is Vanessa's son, Dylan. Not Myra's son, not our grandson, not even just Dylan. Vanessa's son. His hand found mine under the table during dinner. He squeezed once. 15 years old, and he understood that room better than any adult in it. Nobody asked about his grades or his science fair project, which had placed second at the state level. Nobody asked me anything at all. After dessert, Rita cornered me in the kitchen. "It was nice of you to bring him," she said, loading the dishwasher. "Vanessa would be glad to know he's doing well." "Then maybe Vanessa should ask him herself," I said. Rita gave me the look, the one that communicated that I was being difficult again. We drove home in silence until Dylan broke it. "I don't need to go back there, Mom." Dylan's junior year was when I understood that he was not simply a good student. He was genuinely remarkable. Straight A's since freshman year. Advanced placement courses stacked 3 deep. Debate team captain, Saturday morning volunteer tutor at the community center. His teachers stopped me in hallways to use words like exceptional and gifted, and have you thought about early admission? I had thought about nothing except making sure he had dinner every night and clean clothes for school. Everything else, the discipline, the ambition, the quiet internal drive, that was entirely him. His college counselor called me in for a meeting in October. "Dylan is on track to be valedictorian," she said. "His college essay is one of the strongest I have read in 20 years of this work." I asked what it was about. She slid a printed copy across the desk. The title was centered at the top, in standard 12-point font. "The Woman Who Chose Me." I read it in the school parking lot, because I could not read it in front of another human being. I sat in my car with the engine off and the windows up, and I read every word. He wrote about the night I brought him home from the hospital. The yellow blanket. Learning to ride a bike in the parking lot of our apartment complex because we didn't have a driveway. Christmas mornings with newspaper wrapping paper. The night he asked to call me Mom, and I cried. He wrote, "Biology is an accident. Love is a decision." My mother made that decision every single day for 19 years, and she never once asked to be recognized for it. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes before I could see well enough to drive. 2 months before graduation, Dylan brought his phone to the kitchen counter, set it down screen up, and said, "Mom, you need to see this." It was a family group text. Rita, Gerald, Vanessa, 2 aunts, an uncle. Someone had added Dylan to the thread by accident, probably Rita, who had never fully mastered her phone. The messages went back 2 years. I scrolled through them while Dylan stood by the window with his arms crossed, watching me. Rita, 14 months earlier, "When Vanessa is ready, she'll take Dylan back. Myra is just keeping him for now." Vanessa, 3 days later, "Give me a couple more years. I'm getting my life in order." Gerald, a thumbs up emoji. An aunt, "Poor Vanessa. She's been through so much." An uncle, "Myra should be grateful she got to have a kid at all." I read every message twice. My hands stayed steady because they had to. The kitchen was quiet except for the refrigerator. 2 years. For 2 years, my family had been discussing the return of my son like he was a piece of equipment, being stored temporarily. "Why didn't you show me this sooner?" I asked Dylan. "Because I didn't want you to lose them," he said, "even though they don't deserve you." 17 years old, standing in my kitchen, protecting me from my own family. I did not call Rita. I did not call Vanessa. I did not scream or throw anything or send screenshots to anyone. I went to the bedroom, opened the fireproof safe, checked every document. Then I went back to making dinner. That evening on the porch, Dylan explained further. "You would have confronted Grandma," he said, "and she would have cut you off completely. And even though she doesn't treat you right, I know you still love her. I didn't want to be the reason you lost your own mother. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say that Rita had forfeited that title years ago. But the truth was more layered than that. It always is with family. Dylan, I said, you and I are a family. We have been since the day I carried you through that door. Whatever they plan and whatever they say, it doesn't change what is legally and actually true." "You are my son," he nodded. "I know. I've always known." I did not confront anyone. What I did instead was quiet. I opened the safe. I reviewed every document. Guardianship papers valid. Voluntary relinquishment signed, notarized, and on file. School enrollment records with my name on every emergency contact line for 19 years. Medical records with my signature on every consent form since his first vaccination. I found the yellow blanket in the corner of the safe, still folded, frayed at every edge, smelling faintly of something I could no longer name. I held it briefly, put it back, and closed the safe. If they wanted a confrontation, the paperwork was prepared. But I wasn't going to be the one who started it. 6 weeks before graduation, Rita called. She didn't ask about the valedictorian announcement. She called to tell me about Vanessa. "Your sister has met someone wonderful," she said in the tone people use for lottery results. "His name is Harrison Whitfield. Real estate. Very successful. Very traditional. He wants a family, Myra. A real family." I leaned against the counter and listened. Vanessa told him about Dylan. Rita continued. About how complicated the situation was. About the difficult choice the family circumstances forced her to make. "What choice was that exactly?" I asked. "You know what I mean. The choice to let me help. That was how my mother described 19 years of solo parenthood. "Harrison is very moved by Vanessa's story," Rita said. "He thinks she was incredibly brave. He wants to meet Dylan. This could be Vanessa's chance. Her chance. Not Dylan's opportunity to know his biological mother. Not a chance for the family to finally reckon honestly with its own history. Vanessa's chance. Harrison doesn't know the complete story, does he?" I said. "He knows what he needs to know. He doesn't know she signed away her rights by fax during rush week." Silence. "Do not ruin this for her, Myra." I hung up, went outside, sat on the porch steps watching the streetlights come on one by one. Dylan came out with 2 glasses of water. "Grandma called? About your Aunt Vanessa." "She's not your aunt. I know. It's just easier." 3 weeks later, Dylan set his phone on the counter. She messaged me. An Instagram direct message from an account with a professional headshot and 4,000 followers. "Hey, handsome. I know this is out of nowhere, but I'm your bio mom. I've thought about you every single day. I would love to meet you before graduation." 3 heart emojis. A smiling face. I read it twice, set down my red grading pen. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I don't know. What should I do?" "That's your call, Dylan. Not mine." He sat with it for 2 full minutes. Then he typed a reply. Short, polite, cool. "Hi, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you thinking of me." No warmth, no excitement, no invitation. Just confirmation that a message had been received. Vanessa responded within 90 seconds. "Can't wait to see you at graduation. I'm bringing someone special I want you to meet." Dylan read it, locked his phone, placed it face down on the table. I thought about Vanessa at 16 signing papers by fax from a sorority house, and Vanessa at 35 typing, "I've thought about you every single day," with heart emojis. Same person, same distance, different technology. She has school. "I've thought about you every single day." 2 sentences, 19 years apart. The first was at least honest. 6 weeks before the ceremony, the school made it official. Dylan Summers, valedictorian, class of 2026. Principal Ricks called me on a Tuesday morning during an IP meeting. I stepped into the hallway to hear her say that my son had the highest grade point average in a class of 312 students. "He'll give the valedictorian address," she said. 5 to 7 minutes. He can choose his own subject. I thanked her, hung up, leaned against the hallway wall. A sophomore passing by asked if I was all right. I told her I was better than fine. That evening I told Dylan. He smiled, the quiet, contained smile that hadn't come from anyone in the Summers family, because it was entirely his own creation. "I already started writing the speech," he said. "Can I hear it?" "Not yet. You'll hear it at the ceremony." For 6 weeks after that, I heard him behind his closed door, reading aloud, pausing, revising, sometimes silence for 5 or 10 minutes, which meant something was being rewritten. I bought a new dress for the first time in 3 years. Claire helped me choose it. Navy blue, simple, comfortable enough for a 2-hour plastic chair. She said I looked like I was attending a state dinner. I told her I was going to something better. 2 weeks, then 1, then 3 days. The ceremony approached, and so did Vanessa. The phone call came on a Thursday evening 9 days out. Rita's number. I almost didn't answer. Vanessa will be at the graduation. No greeting, no preamble. She's bringing Harrison. They're flying in from Chicago. That's fine. Do not make a scene, Myra. I have never made a scene in my life. Good. Because this is an important day for Vanessa. I held the phone away from my ear and stared at it. An important day for Vanessa. Not for Dylan, who was graduating. Not for me, who had helped him get there night after night for 13 years. For Vanessa, who is flying in with a new partner to perform motherhood for an audience. "She's bringing a cake," Rita added. "Something special to mark the occasion." "That's thoughtful," I said, because I couldn't think of anything honest to add. I hung up, sat on the porch. May. Cut grass and magnolia in the air. A neighbor's sprinkler clicking in the distance. After 15 minutes, Dylan came outside with 2 glasses of lemonade and sat next to me. "She's coming," I said. "I know." With Harrison, I figured. Are you all right with that? He set his glass on the railing, turned to look at me with those dark, steady eyes. Mom, I have been all right for a long time. I was all right when I was 8 and asked to call you Mom. I was all right when I was 13 and you told me the truth. I was all right when I saw the group chat. I'm all right now. He stood, squeezed my shoulder. She can bring whoever she wants. She can bring a cake and a banner and a brass band. It won't change a single thing. He went inside. I stayed until the sun was gone. Graduation morning. I woke at 5:30 and couldn't return to sleep. Made coffee, sat at the kitchen table listening to the house. Dylan's cap and gown were hanging on the back of the dining room chair, navy blue with a gold tassel. I had collected them from the school office 3 days earlier and pressed them with a damp cloth between the iron and the polyester. Low heat, the way my own mother had taught me to iron when I was 10. Dylan came downstairs at 7, showered, dressed in white button-down and dark slacks. Ready. How do you feel? I asked. Hungry. I made eggs and toast and orange juice. We ate in comfortable silence. Morning light came through the kitchen window and hit the salt shaker at an angle that scattered a small rainbow across the table. Can I hear the speech? I asked one more time. You'll hear it from the 3rd row, he said. After breakfast, he went upstairs to finish getting ready. I washed the dishes and dried them and put them away. When I came back downstairs, Dylan was in the hallway adjusting his cap in the mirror. I noticed something in his hand. Small, yellow, folded, the blanket. He was tucking it carefully into the inside pocket of his vest. He caught me watching in the mirror and held my gaze. For good luck, he said. Then he smiled. I asked nothing else. I picked up my car keys. Claire was meeting us at the school. The gymnasium was 20 minutes away. It might as well have been a different country. The gymnasium at Willow Creek High School holds 400 people, and that day every chair was full. Rows on the gym floor, a stage at the front with a podium and a microphone and a banner that read Class of 2026. The school orchestra was warming up in the corner, a mix of strings and flutes, and one tuba player, who looked like he was reconsidering his choices. Claire and I found seats in the 3rd row on the left side, close enough to see the podium, close enough to see Dylan's face when he crossed the stage. I smoothed my dress, set my purse beneath the chair, folded my hands in my lap. Then the doors at the back opened. Vanessa entered the gymnasium like she was stepping onto a stage. Emerald green wrap dress, auburn hair in loose waves, heels that clicked on the hardwood floor, smile calibrated for maximum range. Harrison walked beside her. Gray suit, silver watch, salt and pepper hair, the posture of a man accustomed to entering rooms and assessing them. Behind them, Rita and Gerald. Rita in a floral blouse and occasion lipstick, Gerald in a mismatched tie. And in Rita's hands, balanced on a plastic tray with a paper doily underneath, a white frosted cake with pink lettering, "Congratulations from your real mom." 200 people in that room, families settling into their seats, graduates lining up in the hallway, and my mother was walking down the center aisle, carrying a cake that claimed my son belonged to someone else. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Claire reached over and took my hand. Before the ceremony began, Vanessa made her move. She walked directly to the staging area where the graduates were lining up. A volunteer parent held the door. Vanessa smiled at her and said she was Dylan Summers' mother. Technically, biologically, it wasn't a lie. I watched from my seat as she found Dylan in the line and pulled him into a full theatrical embrace, both arms wrapped, head tilted, at the precise angle of someone performing for an audience. Dylan stood rigid. His arms stayed at his sides. Harrison hung back and observed. Rita beamed from 3 rows behind me with a cake on her lap. Then Vanessa came toward me. She moved down my row and leaned in close enough for the people around us to hear every word. Myra, thank you so much for taking such good care of my son all these years. You have been an incredible babysitter. She paused, rested her hand briefly on my shoulder. But I'm here now. I'll take it from here. Babysitter. 19 years, 4,000 school lunches, 300 parent-teacher conferences, 11,000 bedtime stories, 16 years of homework at the kitchen table, Christmas mornings, 19 birthday cakes I had baked myself because bakery cakes cost $40, and that was a full week of groceries. Babysitter. I did not respond. Not because I couldn't find words. I had 19 years of words stacked up. I didn't respond because I saw Dylan watching us from the staging area. He stood completely still, jaw set, eyes locked on mine. And in those eyes, I read a message as plainly as if he had spoken it aloud. Wait for me. So I waited. The ceremony began at 10 o'clock. Principal Hicks welcomed the families. The orchestra played something classical that no one recognized. The superintendent gave a 12-minute speech about futures and community that contained at least 6 sports metaphors. Then the graduates crossed the stage one by one. Name called, diploma received, handshake, photograph, 312 students in alphabetical order. Vanessa had moved to the second row directly ahead of me. Her phone was out, recording. Each time a student she didn't know crossed the stage, she lowered it. She leaned to Harrison several times and whispered things. He nodded, comfortable. A man who believed the version of events his girlfriend had presented to him. Rita sat at the row's end, guarding the cake. Gerald sat beside her, looking straight ahead. Claire sat next to me, phone in her purse, full attention on the stage. She was the only person in that gymnasium who knew the complete story. Summers, Dylan. I heard his name, and everything else in the room ceased to exist. He walked across the stage tall and steady, cap perfectly level. He shook the superintendent's hand, received his diploma, looked down at me in the third row, and winked. Then he walked to the podium, because the next item on the program was the valedictorian address, and everyone in that gymnasium was about to learn who Myra Summers actually was. Dylan adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, unfolded a page of notes. "Good morning," he said. His voice was clear and projected and calm. "Graduates, families, faculty, thank you for being here." He started where valedictorian speeches typically begin. Freshman year confusion, the cafeteria mystery meat, that one substitute who showed films for 6 consecutive weeks. The crowd laughed. Vanessa laughed loudest, her hand on Harrison's arm, still believing this moment belonged to her. He talked about what Willow Creek had taught him, about the teachers who stayed after the bell, the custodian who knew every student by name, the librarian who kept granola bars for the kids who came in without breakfast. He was warm and natural, and the room was completely with him. Then he paused. He looked down at his notes. 5 seconds. 10. Then he folded the page with deliberate care, exactly the way he had folded the yellow blanket when he was 8 years old, placed it on the podium, and began speaking from memory. "I've been working on this speech for 6 weeks," he said. "I wrote 9 drafts. But I realized this morning that the most important thing I want to say is not written on any of those pages." The gymnasium went quiet, the specific quality of silence that descends when 200 people simultaneously understand that something unexpected is coming. Vanessa was still smiling. She leaned forward slightly. Her phone was recording. She was straightening her posture, squeezing Harrison's hand, preparing herself for what she was certain was her moment. She had no idea what was about to happen. "The person I want to acknowledge most today," Dylan said, "is not a teacher or a coach or a classmate. She's a woman who was 22 years old when a newborn was placed in her arms and she was told, 'This is your responsibility now.'" The gymnasium was silent. She had never changed a diaper. She had just been accepted into a graduate program with a full scholarship, and she gave it up the next morning, without hesitation. She let those words stand on their own. She moved into a 1-bedroom apartment, and she figured it out. 4 hours of sleep a night in the first year. Teaching assistant wages. Dollar store supplies. She wrapped my Christmas presents in newspaper because wrapping paper wasn't something she could afford. Somewhere in the rows behind me, someone sniffled. A mother, probably. Someone who recognized that particular exhaustion in the detail. She went back to school when I was 5. 4 years of night classes while working full-time and raising a child alone. She graduated with a master's degree in special education, and not one person from her family came to watch. One friend sat in the third row and cheered for everyone who should have been there. Claire squeezed my hand hard enough to lose circulation. She helped me with homework every night for 13 years. She taught me to cook and do laundry and look people in the eye and shake hands firmly and write thank you notes by hand. She taught me to iron a shirt and change a tire and mean what I say. She came to every conference, every school performance, every award ceremony, every single one. She never missed one. Vanessa was no longer smiling. Her phone was still recording, but her hand had dropped to her lap. She was staring at Dylan, with an expression moving through confusion into recognition into something that looked very much like fear. Dylan looked directly at me. Third row, left side. "She is not the woman who gave birth to me," he said, "but she is the woman who chose me every single day for 19 years without asking for anything in return, without complaining, without quitting." His voice did not break. His hands did not tremble. He stood at that podium with the composure of someone who had spent 19 years learning what composure looks like from the most composed person he had ever known. "Her name is Myra Summers. She is my mother." The gymnasium erupted. 200 people on their feet, many of them crying, nearly all of them clapping. Claire was openly weeping beside me. The orchestra teacher in the corner was pressing a program sheet to her eyes. Principal Hicks stood near the stage steps with her hand over her heart. I could not move. I sat in my plastic chair in the third row, with tears running down my face, and my hands folded in my lap exactly where they had been for the last 45 minutes. except now they were shaking. Vanessa sat 2 rows ahead, no longer clapping, her phone pointed at the ceiling. Harrison was looking at her, then at me, then at Dylan, on the stage, then back at Vanessa, with a new expression, precise and measuring. Rita sat at the end of her row with the cake in her lap. "Congratulations from your real mom," the pink letters facing outward, visible to everyone around her. Except those words had just been answered by 200 people rising to their feet. I looked at my son on that stage. He looked back at me and shaped 2 silent words that no one else could see. "Thank you." The ceremony ended. Families moved out onto the grass in the May afternoon sun. Graduates embraced classmates. Cameras clicked. I was standing near the oak tree by the parking lot when Vanessa reached me. She was moving fast, heels sinking into the grass, mascara already blurring at the corners. Harrison followed a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, expression quiet and closed. "What was that?" Vanessa said, her voice sharp, carrying. "What did you tell him to say?" "I didn't tell him anything. You coached him. You turned my own son against me." Dylan appeared behind her, still in his cap and gown, with his diploma in hand. "Nobody coached me," he said. His voice was steady and even, the voice of someone who had prepared for this conversation for a long time. "I wrote every word of that speech myself." Vanessa turned toward him. "Baby, I'm your mother. I carried you. I gave birth to you. And then you signed the paperwork and faxed it from Boston," Dylan said. During rush week, Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Grandma once told me you had to leave because you had school," Dylan continued. "And you did go to school. For 19 years, you went to school and built a career and lived 2 marriages and moved to Chicago. That was your life to live. But you don't get to walk into my graduation carrying a cake that says real mom and act as if the 19 years that actually happened didn't." He looked at Rita standing 10 feet away with the cake still in her hands. "And Grandma, you told someone recently that today was Vanessa's chance. But this is my graduation, not her audition." Harrison stepped forward. He had not spoken a word during the entire exchange. He had been watching with the careful attention of someone who constructs deals for a living and knows when the figures being presented don't hold up. "Vanessa," he said. His voice was low and controlled. "You told me the family situation was complicated. You told me you were forced to give him up. That was the word you used. Forced." Vanessa looked at him. "Harrison, it was complicated. Did you sign the relinquishment voluntarily? I was 16. Did you sign it voluntarily?" The people nearby had stopped pretending not to listen. A parent with a camera lowered it. 2 graduates a few feet away turned to watch. Vanessa looked to Rita for rescue. Rita stepped forward and reached for Harrison's arm. "You don't understand our family." Harrison moved his arm away. He looked at me directly for the first time. Really looked. "You raised him from birth?" "Yes." "Alone?" "Yes." He turned back to Vanessa. His jaw was set. The warmth in his eyes had been replaced by something cooler and more precise. He did not say another word. He straightened his jacket, adjusted his watch, and walked across the grass to the parking lot. I heard a car start, clean and expensive, and watched it pull out past the school sign and down toward the highway. Vanessa stood in the middle of the lawn in her emerald dress, with her auburn hair catching the afternoon light, and she watched the only person who had made her want to become a mother drive away, because he had just learned that she never had been one. The cake sat on the grass, where Rita had set it down. Nobody touched it. Nobody ever would. In the silence after Harrison's car disappeared, something passed across Rita's face. She was looking at Dylan, not at Vanessa, not at me. At Dylan, standing there in his cap and gown with his diploma and his gold tassel, the grandchild she had handed away 19 years ago with a yellow blanket and a set of conditions. Her eyes filled. Her lower lip moved for 3 seconds, maybe 5. And I saw something in my mother's face I had genuinely never seen there before. Regret. Real, unmanaged regret. She opened her mouth. I held my breath. "This is it," I thought. "This is the moment. This is when the wall finally comes down." "Myra," she said. I waited. If you hadn't turned him against his own mother, none of this would have happened. And just like that, the moment collapsed. The wet eyes cleared. The trembling lip went still. Whatever had almost broken open retreated back behind the fortress she had been maintaining since before I was born. Gerald stood behind her, silent as always, looking at the grass. Dylan looked at his grandmother with an expression I can only describe as patient. Not angry, not contemptuous. Patient. The way you look at someone who cannot hear you regardless of how plainly you speak. "Grandma," he said, "no one turned me against anything. I'm 19 years old. I have eyes and ears and 19 years of memories. Do you know how many of those memories include you? 7 Thanksgivings, 3 Christmases, 1 birthday card. That is the full count." He paused. "Do you know how many include Mom?" He gestured toward me. "All of them. Every single one, because she was there for all of them. Rita had no answer. There is no answer for 19 years of absence. Dylan turned to Vanessa. She was standing 3 feet away with her arms wrapped around herself, mascara traced down her face. "I'm not trying to wound you," he said. "I need you to understand that. I'm not punishing you, but I need you to hear something." He took a step closer. "If you want to be part of my life, that door is open. I would genuinely welcome that. But you have to begin from today, not from a grocery store cake, not from a rehearsed speech, not from an Instagram message that says my son, my pride, when you don't know my GPA, or my closest friend's name, or what I'm allergic to." Vanessa blinked. "What are you allergic to?" "Tree nuts," Dylan said, "since I was 4. Mom found out when I broke out in hives at a birthday party. She drove me to the emergency room doing 60 in a 35 zone. She sat in the waiting room for 4 hours with a juice box and didn't leave my side." He reached into the inside pocket of his vest and drew out something small and yellow and worn. The blanket. The baby blanket from 19 years ago. The one that had wrapped my mother's newborn and then my newborn on the same night he came home for the first time. The one that had lived in a fireproof safe under my bed for the past 14 years alongside every document that proved he was mine. He unfolded it, held it for a moment, then walked to me, took my hand, and placed it in my palm. "This is yours, Mom," he said. "It always was." I held it, thin as old paper, soft as the first morning of something, frayed at every edge. It smelled like cedar and baby shampoo, and every year of being someone's entire world. There was nothing left for me to say. My son had already said all of it. Claire put her arm around my shoulders. The parents nearby were quiet. Even the tuba player had stopped packing up his instrument to watch. Vanessa stood alone on the grass, nobody approaching her. Rita and Gerald moved toward the parking lot without a word or a backward glance. The cake remained on the ground near the oak tree. The ceremony was over. The afternoon went on the way afternoons do, in fragments and light, and the kind of ordinary that follows something that will never be ordinary again. My son came and stood beside me, still in his cap and gown, diploma in hand, yellow blanket now in my pocket. He put his arm around my shoulders the same way Claire had. We stood there together in the May sun, the 3 of us, while the lawn emptied around us and the afternoon turned golden, and the last of the streamers drifted down from somewhere above the gymnasium doors. If you are still here, you already know this is not simply a graduation story. It is a story about who earns the title of mother. It is for everyone who held someone together in the dark, when nobody was watching, and never asked for recognition. Like and subscribe, and stay with me.